Powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. Now, live from inside the Matt Black Kia Studios, it's Football at 4.
And Football at 4 is powered by the Inside the Birds podcast. It's brought to you by PropSwap, America's sports betting marketplace. Sell your sports bets, take your profit. Find out how. Go to PropSwap.com. Download the PropSwap app today. Football at 4. That means we're 9 days away from the NFL Draft. Plenty of draft conversation to have with Andrew DiCecco from InsideTheBirds.com. And he joins me right now here on the Sports Bash on 97.3 ESPN. Welcome back, Andrew. What's good, man?
Hey, Mike. What's going on? How are you?
All right. I'm doing good. Before we get into some nuts and bolts here, do you have any interest or did you watch any of the USFL this weekend?
I did not. And from what I've gathered, it's sort of been a mixed bag as far as the product quality and just the overall play. So have you seen it? Did you get a chance to check it out?
I watched a little bit. I mean, I'm not one of those people that is like, I mean, football's on. I turned it on between like games of the NBA playoffs when there was like some slow moments here or there. I wouldn't say the gameplay is great, but like I said, there's football on my TV. I just kind of put it up there as background noise on the weekend. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I know Rashard Davis is in the league. He's a former Eagle. He had a Super Bowl ring. He was a member of the practice squad, and I'm a big football junkie. I just spent some time with family this weekend, so it wasn't necessarily at the forefront of my mind to check it out. But I'll give it. I'm going to definitely give it a watch.
Yeah, I mean, the ratings were pretty good. The first day of the USFL, I mean, they did 3 million viewers on that first game and 2.1 million on the game on NBC. So they had a pretty good weekend for the first weekend. Now, that typically will drop a little bit in two, but if you're getting 3 million people watching these games, like the AAF was getting about 1.5. I don't know. I don't know that spring football or especially this USFL product has staying power, but people, it shows they love their football, man.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not really surprised by the ratings thus far. We'll see if it can continue on through and if they're able to have, some sustained success. But I mean, I'm not surprised because everybody loves their football, and any chance you can get it, people are going to definitely absorb it.
Yeah, Clayton Thorson, by the way, was the Houston Gamblers quarterback in the game I was watching. Luis Perez was one of the There's 3 former Eagle quarterbacks. Kyle Laletta is the other one that are playing in the league right now. But Clayton Thorson was the one that I got stuck watching the other day. So that kind of tells you the level of quarterback I'm seeing.
Yeah, I mean, outside of Christian Hackenberg or Matt McGloin, you pretty much would have the gamut of all these former Eagles quarterbacks.
Aren't you right about that? All right, let's take a look at some of the things that we're watching. Hey, I've heard a lot of conversation leading into the draft about Charlotte at number 6. I want to kind of get your thoughts there. Do they think 6 is too high to take a quarterback? And I asked that because obviously we've heard, there's little whispers about the Eagles have 2 picks. Would it behoove them to call Carolina? In other words, do you think it would be worth in this year's draft to move up to number 6 for somebody?
If you're looking for a quarterback, you mean?
No, if you're Howie Roseman, because Carolina apparently is not thrilled about drafting a quarterback in the 6th spot. They think they can move down and take a quarterback.
Right.
So if you're Philadelphia, would you call them? Is there a player you would want at number 6, not a quarterback?
Sauce Gardner, without hesitation. I think that he's a difference-making player that you're going to have to get within the top 10 likely. And I think you can plug him right in, and he's going to be an all-pro and complement what they already have in Darius Slay. The Eagles really don't have anybody outside of Darius Slay, so I think that you're getting a sure thing with Sauce Gardner. So he probably would be the only player that I would definitely swing the bat on if I'm the Eagles.
So if he's there, number 6, Carolina's on the board, you would pick up the phone and make that call and say, hey, what do we need to give you to move into that spot?
Yes, yeah, I definitely would because, like I said, even if Sauce Gardner's within striking distance of the Eagles, and he getting past, we're talking about 8, 9, I think the Eagles need to be aggressive and trade up and get him because he's a difference maker and a plug and play guy. So, He's as close as you're going to get in this draft, Mike, to a sure thing. He doesn't really have many blemishes to his game, and I think that when you look at what the Eagles really have at corner, it's kind of scary when you look at their depth chart. And right now Zach McPherson, if the season were to start today, would be their starter opposite Darius Slay, and that obviously can't happen if they expect to be competitive.
Okay, now if Kyle Hamilton starts to fall, let's say he's hanging around the 10 spot, do you think he gets to 10?
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I think there's a chance that he goes right around that 10, 11 area. And do I think the Eagles should pursue it? Only if Sauce Gardner's not, if he's out of the equation, if he's already off the board. I think that he's sort of a unicorn, Kyle Hamilton, as far as what you're able to do with him and move him around. And he's not strictly a safety. You can move him, you can sort of treat him like you would, like Malcolm Jenkins was, but he's a much more athletic, and he has the size and the range, and he's also a lot younger than Malcolm was when he got here. So, I mean, he and the Eagles need to rectify that position and stop getting these free agent Band-Aids. Tyrann Mathieu, a name that's been kicked around, of course, but I think if Kyle Hamilton's there, he'd be another guy that would be worth trading up for.
Right. Those are two interesting names there. When we start to look at the wide receiver stuff, now you and I have thrown a couple of receivers, but I feel like every single mock draft, take them for what they're worth, I get that, but seemingly has a wide receiver falling into that range. Do you think that there will be a choice of wide receivers? In other words, do you think that these receivers aren't going to start going off the board until we get around 10, 15, somewhere in that range?
Yes, and the reason why I say that, Mike, is that and I think you and I spoke about this last time, is that there is no Jamar Chase in this class. There's no bona fide top flight guy that's going to be this perennial all-pro, at least not one that jumps off the paper. I think Jameson Williams is going to have the best career out of all the receivers, followed probably by Garrett Wilson. But that said, that's also far from a sure thing, unlike last year and the year before. So I think you're going to see a lot of them sort of go anywhere from like 10, 11, 12, 15, in that 10 to 15 range. You're going to see the Garrett Wilsons, the Chris Olaves, the Drake London might go around 15, 16. Somewhere around there, 17. So, I mean, I think there's a lot of guys that are in that similar tier, and it's going to come down to preference ultimately.
Okay, so we had discussed about that last week. I want to get your take on, because I'm kind of moving on from wanting to take a wide receiver in the first round, because I think in some of our conversations, hey, you could get one maybe in round 2 and round 3. I want to ask you where you think these guys might go. I know we may have hit on Pickens last week, but is he a guy that's available at 51?
It's going to be close. I think he goes probably anywhere from like 42 to 50, the 40 to 51 range. I don't think he gets past the Eagles if he's there at 51, but I think early day 2 is when you're going to see him generate some interest and become a realistic possibility for a lot of teams. Right. The talent's too great to pass up. There's obviously just the question mark there with the knee. If it wasn't for that, he's a first-round pick.
6'3", 200 pounds, didn't play a lot, was injured at Georgia. He made a big catch in that game against Alabama in the SEC game. He had a big catch in that championship game. But if you look at the numbers, you're going to say, well, this guy didn't do much. But as Andrew just mentioned, he was hurt. 36 catches, 513 yards, 6 touchdowns his sophomore year in 2020. Let's go to John Mechie over at Alabama. Tore his ACL, 96 catches, 1,100 yards, 8 touchdowns. I would imagine at 51 he's there, right? What about around 83?
Yeah. I even think, I was just going to say, I think even around 83 he could be there. If he falls within that weird range where in the 70s, well, the Eagles are also armed, let's not forget, with that pick number 101 that they acquired from the Saints, that they could also use if they want to sort of move around a little bit. And I do think realistically that Mechie should be there around 83. Again, another guy that's coming off an injury, but he's been very productive, big play guy, works all 3 levels of the field, will be an interesting fit, and you already know that he's going to be pro ready and well versed in all different route concepts and things like that. So you don't really have to worry about getting a raw player that you really have to sort of mold into an NFL receiver, I think you know what you're getting with a guy like John Mechie. So that would be he could be in play at 83. Jalen Tolbert, another guy from South Alabama, could also fall within that range.
6 foot 195 for Mechie there. You mentioned Tolbert. I was going to get to him. He's actually on my list here. I want to ask you, though, this guy's interesting, man. I had somebody ask me about him the other day, and I said, you know what? You're the first guy who's brought up Christian Watson to me, and I'm surprised that Eagles fans haven't caught on to him. Now, for two reasons. One, he went to North Dakota State, very famous for Carson Wentz, Trey Lance. In fact, Trey Lance and him play together. Two, he's 6'4", 208 pounds, and runs a 4.3 40. I've heard people say he could be the DK Metcalf of this draft. Why aren't we hearing as much about Watson?
Well, I think it simply has to do with the school, right? I mean, North Dakota State is not, it hasn't been known as a factory that churns out wide receivers. But that's not, again, and when you look at a guy like Christian Watson, you wonder, he has the size and the speed and everything like that, but what is he missing? And for me, Mike, he's still he's a very unrefined route runner. He's shown marked improvements in that area, but you wonder how he's going to be able to transition at the pro level. Is he going to be able to run the full gamut of routes? How quickly will he be able to acclimate himself to the NFL level and the NFL speed and things like that? I mean, even I think I spoke to Zion McCollum, interestingly enough, on Draft Dreams, and he said that Christian Watson was his toughest cover, but he also said that he didn't think that Christian Watson was able to really show what he was able to do because of their offense. So I think it was sort of indicated there's a lot more he had a lot more to offer, a lot higher ceiling than what he was really showing, which is awfully enticing when you look at what he's already able to do and that size and speed. So it's a little bit of some question marks there if you were to draft him. You know, I don't know that he's going to be a plug-and-play guy, which the Eagles need right away because they need a lot of help at wide receiver outside of Devontae Smith. But I think that he's going to be a productive player. I just don't know how early on in his career that's going to happen.
Yeah. Now, what range of the draft do you have Christian Watson going? I think this is an interesting one. I've seen mock drafts with him in the first round. I've seen him in the 70s.
Yeah.
So where do you have him?
I have him as a mid to late second round pick.
Mid to late second round. All right, that's interesting because North Dakota State, you mentioned the school, small. I like the story. Now, who did you talk to about him?
Zion McCollum, who guarded. He said,
the
how
corner.
I asked him what his toughest cover was. Yeah, the corner. And Zion McCollum in himself, he is a guy that's climbing up draft boards as well. But I thought that was an interesting comment that he made about Christian Watson.
Yes, very good insight by you, Andrew DiCecco here. Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com. Dotson, Penn State would be next guy on my list. 183 catches, 2,700 yards, 25 touchdowns. Those numbers say very productive guy. Your thoughts on him?
Yeah, he's actually a player that I got a chance to see up close and personal at Penn State's Pro Day late March. And, I mean, I got to tell you, he stole the show, Mike. He doesn't have the requisite size that you want and what the Eagles really need right now. They're looking for a big-bodied guy. But I'll tell you what, his ball tracking really stuck out right away. He caught everything. He was a very technically sound route runner. He just looked very fluid. And to see that in person and see the confidence that he played with and the authority and technicality that he ran his routes with a purpose and his ability to track balls that on some of these throws, frankly, at Pro Day that weren't necessarily on the mark, he was able to reel those in. And just concentration and everything. I think he's a guy that when you talk about being polished and pro ready, you're talking about a guy like Jahan Dotson. Now, how does he fit with the Eagles? Well, I mean, I think he can be an outside guy, but I think more often than not, you're going to see him work in the slot, and the Eagles don't necessarily need a player like that. But again, you want to get a good player who's going to be able to contribute, and you're not going to have to roll the dice with him. I think Dotson's going to be a guy that can, you can plug right in, and he's going to help out day one.
All right, I like you mentioned that you stole the show at Penn State's Pro Day there because Brisker's another guy that we'll talk about later on in this week when you're back. Because looking at second and third round safeties, I don't know that he'd be in the third round, but Brisker, I would have a lot of interest if he was there. As I'm doing more research on this, there's a couple safeties that I'm willing to wait until the second round for. Does that sound like, there's going to be some picks at 51 at that position? I don't want to get too deep into that because we'll talk a little bit later, but I like 51 at the safety spot.
Yeah, 51's a good spot to be in when you're looking at safeties. I mean, you're going to look at a guy possibly like Brisker, and you're going to have Jalen Petrie, perhaps. I don't know that Lewis Seen will be there. There's also Kirby Joseph. That's probably going to be a little early for him. But I think Brisker and Petrie in particular, that could be a sweet spot for those type of guys.
All right, you mentioned Jalen Tolbert. He was on my list. Many people would know him, South Alabama, but got a guy 6'3", almost 200 pounds, and I would imagine his size at that position, 82 catches, 1,400 yards, 8 touchdowns, very high-end speed, the ball skills, man. This guy, if he went to a bigger school, probably get more talk.
Exactly, man. And you know what? He checked off all the boxes at the Senior Bowl. He proved that he can compete with these Power 5 guys, and I think that you would think that with his size and his ball skills and things like that are very enticing, that he would be this physically imposing, contested catch specialist type of guy. That's not necessarily his game, although I think that he could add some weight and strength to play strength and develop that area of his game. But I think he's a guy that can help out between the hashes and definitely give the Eagles another option outside of Dallas Goedert to help in the red zone and be a quarterback-friendly option. And I really like what he's able to do, just the ball skills and ball tracking. He's been a guy that I followed for at least 2 or 3 years at South Alabama, and I've always been enamored with his ability to steadily progress each season. And I think he's another guy that you look at and you say that he's only scratching the surface. I think you get him into an NFL system and an NFL route tree, and I think he's only going to get better, which is kind of scary to think about. I think he's going to be a really productive player.
Okay, those are 5 guys that I kind of am intrigued by. Is there another receiver that's maybe second, third round that I didn't list there that Eagles fans should have their eyes on?
Well, for maybe third round, I would say Alec Pierce. He might Khalil Shakir, is Danny Gray is somebody that's going to kind of climb boards here, but I think you hit the main ones. I would say target Jalen Tolbert in that area. Maybe Mechie would be the guys that if you're going to look at in that second or third round. But if you look later on in the draft, I would look at a guy like a Khalil Shakir or maybe even a Reggie Roberson from SMU or Danny Gray from SMU. So those are just some of the guys, and then there's some really deep sleepers that you look at in the 6th, 7th round. I mean, it's a pretty deep draft for receivers, Mike. It's just a matter of your needs, what type of body type, and how urgent do you need these guys to play, because the Eagles aren't going to be able to afford to wait that long to add to the position. They're unfortunately going to they position themselves to have to address it, in the first, second round.
All right. Well, that was quick. 20 minutes in the books. We just ripped through a bunch of guys. We'll do it again later on this week. I can't wait for this draft because I think with 5 picks in the top 101, you're looking at a very possibly franchise-altering type of night, right? You get 5 picks in the top 101. And I think, what did Sal Powell tell us earlier today? The Eagles have 3 where are my notes of what he said earlier today? But 3, I think he said they have, what? Oh, man, where did I write that down? Something about the next 3 years in the top 3 rounds. I think they have 13 picks in the top 3 rounds over the next 3 years. That's the most in football next to Houston. There it is. 13 in the first 3 over the next 3 years. They are set up to really change the franchise trajectory pretty quickly.
Yeah, they're going to certainly have the ammo, Mike, but now they need to land these picks and get them right, because that could also have them trending in the wrong direction if they whiff. So it all comes down to their scouting department and how diligent they are, and hitting on a lot of these guys in order to make start to get the franchise going in the right direction.
Sure do. And it seems, Andrew, that over the last 2 years or so, they have started to hit on some of these guys. The last couple drafts, we are starting to see some fruit from the labor there, guys who are helping out. So hopefully they can keep that trend going. You can't have the Jalen Reagors and the J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, those standout misses. You got to fix those misses. And with 5 picks in the top 101, 10 overall this year, the NFL Draft 9 days away. Andrew DiCecco, Football at 4 from InsideTheBirds.com. Andrew, thanks, bud.
You got it, man. Talk soon.
All right, he'll be back on Thursday as we will take a look at guys in that second-round area, third-round area. They do have 5 picks in the first 3 rounds. So we got to dig a little deeper. Throw some names your way to keep an eye on draft night. Guys that Andrew likes, guys that I like.